Support our school by subscribing to the channel and check out our website for new classes starting soon.
Hi again, everyone. Welcome back to the Columbus School of Chinese and our show, Ask a Chinese Teacher. Today, the topic on hand is pronunciation. How can you improve your Mandarin pronunciation, specifically coming from my background and most of our students' background of being native English-speaking Americans. Everyone knows Mandarin is notorious for being difficult to pronounce, so much so that it's almost intimidating, kind of scares people away. It almost seems like some mysterious thing that no one could possibly learn, especially as an adult. Well, today I'm here to tell you that there actually is hope. However, there are certain issues that you're better off knowing about before you get started. So I'm going to lay out some of these issues here today, hopefully kind of demystify, kind of define what we're dealing with, and we're going to be able to take from that knowledge going forward when we're paying more attention to getting our pronunciation sounding more and more like a native speaker. The first issue I want to talk about might actually be a little bit surprising to people. I want to talk about Pinyin. Pinyin is the romanization system for Mandarin Chinese. By romanization system, we mean when we use the Roman alphabet to spell out how Chinese sounds. It's a wonderful tool. Pretty much everybody these days learning Chinese learns Pinyin. Even if you grow up in China, elementary kids from a very young age will learn Pinyin. You'll see Pinyin on signage over there. Now, as wonderful as it is, you have to be careful because it can be misleading. Those familiar letters can kind of lull us into a false sense of security, and it might make us not pay as much attention to our pronunciation as we might otherwise do. To give you an example here, let's take a look at the initials chart. The initials, or the consonants that could possibly start a word in Mandarin Chinese. Here's my chart of how I think that breaks down, just thinking about how things are pronounced. So the green ones pretty much sound like they would in English. The yellow ones are relatively close, but you have to be careful. And the red ones, you just have to learn how it sounds in Mandarin. So this becomes an even bigger issue when we're putting letters together to form a full syllable or a full word. Phonics is a thing in English we learn from a very young age. I remember second grade learning all the different rules about when there's a long vowel sound and a short vowel sound. Americans tend to kind of apply these same rules unconsciously when we're looking at Pinyin. The word Pinyin is a great example. With normal phonics in English, we would actually read it as Pinyin. Like pin, like a pinpoint. That is not a short vowel sound. Those vowel sounds don't change no matter if there's an E on the end or something like that in English. That will always be pin, and the IN will always be yin sound. Pinyin, as opposed to pinyin. This is a pitfall. I've even heard of people in graduate level classes in Chinese making the mistake. So pinyin is a great tool, but it can be an issue hindering your pronunciation. Okay, now, of course, we have to talk about tones. The second issue, and it's a big one, is the issue of Chinese being a tonal language. What is a tonal language? In a tonal language, the pitch of your voice and how the pitch of your voice changes, or what the contour of the pitch is as you say a word, actually makes different words. So in Mandarin, we have 4 different tones. We have to be able to differentiate between all of these different tones, not only to hear them, but in production as well, they're related, but it's 2 separate skills. Because in English, we just simply do not have an equivalent system for tones. It's something you really have to pay attention to. It is something you need to deal with quite conscientiously, especially as an adult learner of Chinese. Once again, we've done a ton of discussion about tones. We have a whole series of drills for practicing your tones. Definitely check them out. All right, so finally, the last issue we'll talk about today is the regionality of Chinese. Mandarin, what we're learning here, is a dialect of Chinese. It is the dialect that is most widely spoken, because that's what's taught in schools, that's what you hear on the radio, what you see on TV. Chinese as a United Nations language is Mandarin. However, there are many dozens or hundreds of dialects out there in China. Some are spoken by a little bit wider range of people, some smaller. Some of them differentiate from Mandarin more or less. Some of them are relatively mutually intelligible. For example, my first Chinese-speaking friends group as an undergrad is mostly Taiwanese. Come to find out, when I got to Beijing, that I had a weird Taiwanese sort of accent, which is fine. Those two places both speak versions of Mandarin that are very easily to understand one another. Later on, I went to live in Hunan province for a while, specifically in the capital city of Changsha. In the capital city of Changsha, they speak a dialect of Chinese called Changsha Hua, or I suppose Changshanese. And I would hear Changsha Hua all over the place. My coworkers would be speaking Changsha Hua with each other. Then when they would turn to me, knowing I could not speak Changsha Hua, they would switch to Mandarin. However, they might not have realized how much their Mandarin deviated from the standard Mandarin that I had been studying in university or in Beijing. And sometimes it was difficult to understand. I had to attune my ear, kind of give it a Changsha Hua filter, which took a little bit of getting used to, even though they were speaking Mandarin to me. When I left Hunan and came back to university, my teacher at the university, hearing me speak, almost looked like she saw a ghost because my Chinese had been influenced so much by the Hunan Changsha accent. I was even using different words that you wouldn't necessarily use outside of that region. Moral of the story being that there's actually a wide range of Mandarin with different regional flavor put in. That adds another layer onto what to think about in terms of pronunciation. So hopefully I didn't scare everyone away with all this discussion about what makes Chinese difficult. The point here was not to scare you away, it was to kind of define what the problems are, and that's going to help direct us moving forward as we think more about pronunciation.